O'Brien, and then I'll go back to yourselves.
Yeah.
To O'Brien.
Firstly, just to welcome you most sincerely here today, and it's a pleasure to have you here addressing the committee, and to thank Sadaka indeed for the work that they do here on your behalf on a daily basis in Ireland. And certainly the issue of Palestine and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is always to the forefront of the work of this committee, certainly my own party, Fianna Fáil, as well. And unfortunately today you've painted a very bleak picture, and one which we're acutely aware of. I think the figures, Dr. Barghouti, that you outlined to the committee of the increase in settlers in Palestinian occupied territory further brings to mind my own view that the longer that this is allowed to continue, the less realistic it is for a two-state solution at all. And really what I would like to ask you, and Dr. Khalaf as well, is where do you see things going from now? I welcome very much the formation of a unity government in Palestine. I think that is very important, and that there's one message coming from Palestine. But certainly, from my own perspective, earlier on this year, myself and I met in Cairo with the Secretary General of the Arab League, and they're certainly at every opportunity. We're there for other reasons. They mentioned to us the importance of the recognition of the state of Palestine, to use that as a springboard nearly within Europe to move Israel towards talks. And that's something that I would like to see happen. Our government have it in their programme for government, the recognition of a Palestinian state as part of a two-state solution. And that's my own party, Fianna Fáil's view as well. I'd like you, maybe if you could expand on what you would see in real terms, the impact that would have for the Palestinian people and indeed for the government in Palestine, so that people maybe here could understand how important the recognition of the state of Palestine would be in terms in the Middle East itself and internationally. You may, Dr. Khalaf in particular, just if you could outline just some of the examples of, both of you have mentioned the apartheid system and how Palestinian citizens are treated. Could you give some real-life examples of what that actually means to the normal Palestinian woman or the Palestinian man going about their daily lives? I think again that's important that would be put on record here. I would like to say to you as well that you know, I'm incredibly disappointed as Foreign Affairs spokesman for my own party that the lack of engagement in moving towards a solution from Israel. And I do believe, I want to follow on from what our Vice Chairperson, Deputy O'Sullivan, said, is I believe that there needs to be a sponsor for these talks. There can't just be Israel and Palestine, and I've always, and your ambassador here, who does a fantastic job with his team, I have to say as well, has been at pains to say that it does need an independent sponsor, and it be that not the United States. If that's the case now, I wouldn't write that off completely. Who should it be? Because I think when there were previous advances in talks, it was because that there was an independent sponsor, and we've understood that with the work of the US government during the Irish peace process and indeed the European Union. And finally, I would say, Chairman, just to put on record again that we in Ireland, with our European partners, have been very strong in the condemnation of the destruction of EU-funded properties in Palestine and in the territories. And I know that there's been a strong statement has been made from the European Commission in that regard. What more would you like to see Europe and the EU do as a European Union? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy O'Brien. Dr. Barghouti.
Thank you. Well, these are very good questions. Thank you so much. Let me start by the issue of the peace process. Peace process is not a goal by itself. Peace process is an instrument, a method you use to achieve peace. Unfortunately, in the Palestinian case, and because of the monopoly of the United States over the so-called peace process, and because of the American total bias to Israel, and the inability of the United States to play an impartial role, we ended up with a peace process that have become a substitute to peace. We ended up even with a situation where the peace process have become a cover for the Israeli settlement expansion, and the Israeli facts on the ground that are destroying the very potential for having two-state solution. So this is an ironic situation where the peace process have become a cover for actions that are killing the possibility of peace, because they are killing the possibility of two-state solution. That is the reality of today. That is a reality that nobody can hide after 26 years of negotiations. And that's why it is unacceptable to say that we would delay, for instance, the recognition of Palestine as a state because there is a peace process. In reality, there is no peace process. And to be specifically technical, there has been no peace negotiations since years. It's a dead process. It's a dead process. It's a process that is used to cover the Israeli actions, and it's a process that is not leading to a solution. I've tried to show you some slides, but they were printed to you. And I would like you to look at this page if you can. And you can see here, this was the green part here in the first map, was supposed to be the Palestinian state on almost 44% of the historic land of Palestine. The second map is the so-called two-state solution, which we accepted with great pain because it meant giving up half of what we should have had according to the UN resolution. Yet, Palestinians accepted that two-state solution option based on 67 borders, which is in the second map. Unfortunately, when we went to Camp David in 2000, the third map was offered to us, where a state would be without borders, without sovereignty, without Jerusalem, which is the most important city in Palestine. And then later Sharon went further and deducted more of the proposed Palestinian state and transformed it into three separate sectors. Today,
Mr. Chair, I would like to thank Deputy O'Brien for his very perceptive remark that the longer this is allowed to continue, the less realistic a two-state solution will become. And I think the real question here is, why is this allowed to drag on? Definitely the Palestinians are not pushing, they're not allowing the process to drag on because they are the ones living under a brutal foreign occupation. They want the occupation to end as soon as possible. So the party that has an interest in dragging this on is Israel, because the longer it takes, the more facts on the ground it will be able to establish. And the most important facts on the ground for Israel is the establishment of settlements in the occupied territories. As Dr. Barghouti said, when the Oslo agreements were signed, there were around 100,000 settlers in the occupied territories. Now you have over 700,000 settlers living there. We did a study while I was with the UN. We looked at the map of the West Bank. Israel has expropriated 20% of that land, fully expropriated it, illegally expropriated it. Then if you add to this the lands that are dedicated to be what they call shooting zones or military zones or green zones, and then the land taken by illegal Israeli settlements, and the lands surrounding Israeli settlements that Palestinians are not allowed to access, you will find that more than 60% of the land of the West Bank is not accessible, no longer accessible to Palestinians. So actually these are the facts on the ground that Israel is establishing.